Buenos días.
Buenos dias. I think that everybody is interested in stories which help them understand how something works, something that you experience it, like elections, yes, how you came to power, how you mobilized support, yes, what was kind of incentives for those who elected you, what kind of benefits, what kind of changes, and what kind of resistance you face it when you get to power.
Let me just make an introduction of where we are today, and I will always speak we, because it's Marta sitting right there, very colorful dress. Stand up, Marta. Stand up. Look at, very colorful.
Yeah, this is probably something that answers most of the question.
She's my love. Everything we do together. So we share dreams, we share work, we share BEV, and we enjoy life. And we enjoy life because our life has a clear purpose that we learned back in school, back at home with the family, back in our community, and back with the Jesuit education system, which impregnates you with a profound belief that the shortcut to happiness is doing for others. It's being for others. And of course, you need a purpose for that. That's been our life. And I started first working for the Coca-Cola company for 15 years. I started as a route salesman and grew up to be the CEO and president for the Coca-Cola business in Latin America. So that's 1/4 of my life, 15 years. First quarter was school, was nourishing myself with family values, with beliefs. Jumped to third quarter, I came back to family business. Farming, cowboy boot manufacturing, and so I dedicated 15 years to that. Small company, different world, maybe much more difficult than the experience in the Coca-Cola company, because there you have all the resources, all the support, all the experts in your team, so it's not so difficult. Family business, you have to raise the money to pay the payroll next weekend. Complicated to operate. But finally, I felt emptiness in my heart, emptiness in my soul, because I thought I was not doing sufficient for those people that I love, those people that I grew with in the ranch, in the farm, kids, sons of campesinos, poor kids. And I had a great impact when they had 8, 9, 10-year-olds. They came to me and said, Vicente, we're moving out. We're going north. We're going to America because we want to do better and we don't have the opportunities in this place. So my first lesson is, when you have the opportunity to go to school, do it. To nourish yourself with knowledge, with technology, with new concepts, with innovation. And they didn't have that opportunity. So with tears in their eyes, they moved north. They left their families behind. And that's the whole of the issue of migration. It's moving, looking for something better. And that's why nations have been built. That's why communities have been formed. That's why these heroic leading people that is always on the search for something better. They're very dynamic. They're a great example for all of us. Because out of nothing, they build, they dream, they go for it. And they move from nation to nation, they move from market to market, and they explore. So migration is a big asset question today in the world. Maybe because we're exceeding the amount of migration. And this is because the world can be split into two. The world of the poor, the world of lack of efficiency and lack of resources, the world that is being abandoned because of violence like Syria, the world that is being abandoned because now you have desert, you don't have rain, and farmers are moving somewhere else. So this world is on the move, moving to the developed nations. And yes, of course, we need order, we need security and safety in our borders. But now we're learning through globalization that at the very end, like the Dalai Lama says, this world belongs to humanity, to all 8 billion of us. It doesn't belong to Trump. It doesn't belong to America. It doesn't belong to a single nation. It belongs to all. And then Dalai Lama keeps saying nations belong to their people. And we have the structure, systems to live together, to govern ourselves through politics and government. And finally, nations are integrated by communities. And this is the place you go back to nourish yourself, communities where you're close to people, where you're working with people, where you share beliefs. But local communities with global vision. So I have gone through all of that because my fourth quarter was moving out of private sector, leaving behind the Coca-Cola company and family businesses, and joining politics. Nobody in the family did politics before. Nobody thought that I would be getting into politics. But when challenges call you, you have to be ready. And all of this, what I'm saying, is what has made all this blockchain concept, all these new coins and bitcoins, something new that has been nourished because of the way we human beings have been living up to now, but are changing to the future. That's why we have a 21st century of brightness, of enlightenment. And that's why it's forecasted that we will move from 85 years average age per citizen today into 130 years expectancy of life before this century ends. So those who are going to be born in the second part of this century, they will live for 130 years. It's going to be boring. So we better start looking for what to do. And then we find that this new world is going to be a jobless world. That we have the fortune that we're creating robots that are going to be working for us. So let's not worry about unemployment. We'll have somebody working for us. What we must worry about is how we can innovate, how we can keep using our brain, keep using our vision, keep dreaming for that better future. This century, we're going to end up with poverty. That's forecasted, and it will happen. We will end up with hunger. We're already producing enough food for the 8 billion inhabitants of Earth. The problem is, and maybe blockchain has to solve this, the problem is that we produce and we waste and we throw away because we don't have the logistics, we don't have the distribution systems, because we are not reaching those who need that food with efficiency. But again, that's why hunger will be finished throughout this century. What can prevent that future to happen? Only violence and war. And we human beings don't seem to learn the lesson that we human beings perform at our very best when there is peace, when there is harmony. Otherwise, we don't even have the stability, the reason why to go to work. If we find violence, crime, homicides, aggressions, harassments, and else and else. So this world needs love. This world needs harmony so that we human beings perform at our very best. And this is that environment that we're having today to create this spectacular new things to benefit humankind. But we have to go to the very principles. The number one trust. This innovation, the system will only work if there is trust. And when trust is a doubt, then we create arbitrage. Then we create regulations. But hopefully, to the future, we will move with more and more freedom. Because freedom is where we get the capacity to think and to innovate. And we all were created free. And we must use that freedom with responsibility. So I got to be president. After 71 years of one authoritarian government, one government of one single party, repeating throughout 71 years. And when you have a monopoly of power, when you have one single government running the show, everything becomes corrupt. Everything becomes inefficient. That's the case of monopolies. So open competition is a key, crucial issue. But when I came in the picture, when I moved from private sector to public sector, was quite an experience. I started as a grassroots for my political party. Then I became congressman. Then I became governor of my state. Then I became president of Mexico in a span of 15 years. I thought that was going to be my last quarter, and the game was over. But Martha and I learned that there is life after the presidency. That life keeps on going, and as long as you have challenges, as long as you work hard, as long as you have dreams, you stay on the path. You keep pursuing your purpose and your dream. So Martha and I, we're on our 5th quarter today. We created a presidential library inspired on US presidential libraries. And the first one outside of United States. So we founded that presidential library. Today, it welcomes over 200,000 people a year. Today, we have one of our main programs which has to do with leadership called President for the Day, where we bring in 50,000 kids from rural communities, from humble families, from indigenous communities, to a leadership immersion. And so the main message is you were not born to be poor. You were not born to be a migrant. You were not born to join the cartels and criminals. You were born to do great things in your life. You were born to a spectacular leadership. And once you change one mind, you change a mindset, you change the chip, the person is on the move. And there is no limit to their dreams. So we do that every year with 50,000 kids out there in Mexico. Because leadership is the power within that moves us to grow. And we're all leaders. You're a leader, we're all leaders, and we're leaders all the time of our life. It's not true that some are born to be leaders and the rest to be followers. That is not true. We play the two roles. We're leaders for projects that we think about, that we develop, and then we invite others to join in. Or we're followers when somebody else invited us to come, like we, Martha and myself, came to these conferences. So we all play the two roles. And leadership is that power we have within that takes us to unimaginable heights and dream accomplishment. So this is what we teach at Vicente Fox. We have other two foundations, charitable, doing for others, on health, food, nutrition, wheelchairs, education, and else and else. And believe me, yes, this life, we have to work hard to make some money. But money is not the purpose or the objective. Happiness is. We all have that aspiration for happiness. So when we get the two things together, like using blockchain, like using Bitcoins for social purposes, to defeat poverty, to improve health systems, to increase and expand health services, and so on and on, then we have a purpose, and these things work, and work extremely well. So I want to thank you for inviting Martha and myself, for giving us the opportunity to meet people in other parts of the world, to be in this successful nation, because when you are in America, US citizens, or when you are neighbor, partner with America, like Mexico is, you tend to lose sight of so many good things that are happening around the world. There are many more Nobel Prizes outside of the United States than the United States itself. United States is only 20% of the economy, and the rest of the world is 80%. Huge market to participate in. So maybe we Mexicans are going to be kicked in our ass and kick us back to Mexico, because that's Trump's wish and dream. We have alternatives. We will move with Plan B. So that's where Mexico is positioned right now. Brief word about NAFTA, and then I get your questions in Spanish, Español. NAFTA. NAFTA has been there for 25 years. Maybe it was the very first trade agreement put together of this magnitude in the world. Later on came the 7 tigers of Asia working together. Then we have Mercosur, Latin American economies working together in southern continent of America. The European Union right after World War, which is the most fantastic venture put it together, full of creativity, full of humanism, full of compassion, full of very strong, cohesive, working together. Me for you, you for me. That's the whole concept in Europe. But unfortunately, after moving so fast into a global world, after moving so fast in creating blocks, all of a sudden, somebody saying, stop. Something is not working. Globalization is not working as it used to, and it's not the answer to the future. Unions, trade agreements are being questioned. And the worst part of it is that we're going back to nationalism. We're going back to building walls. It's incredible that we are disqualifying what humankind has done in the last 30, 50 years. That miracle of Europe expanding, growing, taking that region of the world up to per capita between 30,000 and 50,000 US dollars. Leveling off the gap of distribution. So what you see in Europe, like you see in Asia, it's those who have and those who have not. It's a narrow gap. Not United States, it's a huge distance between those who have and those who have not. So Europe has been a great example, but today again is questioned. Migration that built nations everywhere. United States, a nation of migrants, starting with President Washington and Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson. All of them came from migrant families from Europe. And all black Americans that came as migrants from Africa. And all Hispanics that we came as migrants from Latin America. And all those coming from India and Asia, those brilliant human minds and talents. That's what built that great competitive nation. But today, a disruptor comes in and questions. And that's the power of leadership. Not with the right cause, but still with sufficient capacity to communicate, capacity to convoke, just like Hitler did at a time, and just like other leaders have done. That's why I end up with this first part by saying, leadership by itself is not enough. It's not transcendent. What transcends is compassive leadership. It's leadership with a cause. Leadership that knows where you're going and how you're going to get there. And I hope out of this conference, concepts like blockchain, like coin currencies, new currencies, really understands what is it all about, really understands where we're going, where we're heading to, and how we're going to get there. And more so that it has that ingredient of compassion and love involved in it. Because otherwise, we don't want it to enrich a few and let the rear guard behind. We must tie together vanguard, successful vanguard, the thinkers, the innovators, with the rear guard. Otherwise, the world will become violent. Otherwise, we will see this migration moving massively to invade successful nations. And otherwise, we will see walls being built, which is stupid. The Chinese wall didn't work. The Berlin Wall didn't work. Finished.
Perché per the most, sir. I hope it's something that could be said in public. Okay, so thanks a lot. And this is a very great big picture. I love it. So we are entrepreneurs. We want to do things which help us to survive immediately, right? To get expectations of investments done. But when we get a big picture how the world works, then we see how to change it. And you touched such big issues such as NAFTA and free global trade, and I feel associations with blockchain. I think that blockchain, it's like introduction of free trade, where some people lose on it because they lose job to, say, Mexican employees. But the global economy benefit on it because allocation of resources is more efficient. There are great incentives globally to produce goods that are valuable in America and globally. There is a huge potential for global economy growth if developing countries will use modern technologies. Their productivity can be 10 times to 20 times higher. And this will increase global economy by $500 trillion in global product each year. It's something like 8-time increase of global product. But what is the bottleneck? Why Mexican productivity and productivity of other countries is not as high? It's not that easy to copy technology and use it, but what is the bottleneck? Why developing countries do not catch up?
Yeah. Let me throw some concepts. This concept of community, it's refreshing, it's spiritual, it's when you come with your family and you get the love you need. You nourish your power within. But at the same time, communities are isolated. And isolated from the news, the innovations, the technology. So we have to combine. And the only thing I can think about is to link vanguard with the rear guard. And that only happens when you want to share, not when you want to build walls. That only happens when you want to be part of the world and not isolate yourself. So it's this link, this putting together that will bring in some space. Let me tell you, number one concept in NAFTA, because development is a matter of generations. It's not a matter of administration and government administration for 4 years or 6 years. You cannot make miracles. So when NAFTA was created, there was one single purpose for it, visionary purpose. Let's get together and conform the strongest bloc of economies in the world, the strongest, most competitive region in the world, Canada, United States, and Mexico. What for? To accelerate our development, our sustainable development, to join in our resources, which are complementary, and so that by working together, we will be much stronger. So when NAFTA started, Mexico maybe was the little guy on the backyard. But the purpose of NAFTA was to level off the three economies. So when it started, income you would make on the Mexican side was $1, and when you learn how to swim and cross the Rio Grande River, you will make 10. Or when you learn to jump walls, you will make $10 instead of 1. Which human being would not go by that incentive? So what we're talking about is an economic issue. And the more we reduce that gap, the better we're going to be, the three of us. 25 years after, one generation, the gap now is 5 to 1. So it came down from 10 to 1, 5 to 1. And that's why if you notice, the incentive is not as strong as it was 25 years ago for people to cross. So that's why migration now of Hispanics, of Mexicans, is reversed. Now there is more Mexicans coming back to Mexico than those going into United States, because we have narrowed that gap, because now we have the jobs. Mexico is close to full employment today. Not the income we wish. We still have to strive further. But that's where we are today. My forecast is that if we keep NAFTA going, and maybe if a concept like NAFTA, we enhance it, we do it better through innovation and technology, through some good changes that are needed, in one generation more, we're going to be 1 to 1. Mexico and United States. So then the incentive to cross is not going to be there. It's going to be like Canada and United States, 1 to 1. You make $1 in Canada, you make $1 in United States. In one generation, you will make $1 in Mexico, 1 in United States. Why? Why? Because of this drilling we're doing to that border to have a strong exchange. We trade $1 trillion with the United States and Canada, the largest trading balance in the world. Imagine the amount of containers, the amount of services crossing that border every day. 1 million people cross that border every day to go to work to the States, to go to school in the States, to go to work in Mexico, to go to school in Mexico, or to go and have some tequila in Mexico. So, and now some marijuana, some cannabis, because we're approving for medical use, and pretty soon we will approve for recreational use. So as you can see, we are like communicating vessels where water tends to level off, and that's what will happen with income in this next generation. You need patience to see process of development. It doesn't happen by the miracle, except that you can accelerate the pace with technology. And that's what we're discussing here, acceleration. Acceleration, blockchain, new ideas, acceleration. That's today's world. This company, by the name of Serra Cap, an investment fund, which is here present, Serra Cap, what they do is they locate the best ideas worldwide in any country, and every country has always that vanguard that is creating ideas and innovation. So they find out those potential projects, they do due diligence, and they inject the money to those projects, and they multiply 3x, 5x, 10x, because there are bright ideas, new ideas, starting from the bottom, and you have a great potential of growth. That's the kind of things, and that's why Serra Cap is in Mexico, operating, because we need that in our countries. We are that isolated community there that we don't yet have all the knowledge, all the innovations, all the technology. And so we need that to reach us. And that's why, I mean, you here come from many different nations. All of you are going to take ideas back. All of you are going to take some things that you learned here and bring it back home, and like the stone on the lake, boom, and create waves and expand and expand. But let's never forget about always keeping vanguard, working with rearguard, because there are too many populists in the world, too many demagogues, like we had in Latin America all throughout the 20th century. Now we have him in the United States. Trump is a populist. Trump is a demagogue because he tells his citizens, I know you have fear, but don't worry. I'm going to build a wall to protect you. I know you don't have a job or you're complaining about your income. Don't worry. We will take away those jobs that Mexico took from us, which is an absolute lie. Technology took those jobs away. Robotics took those jobs away. And ignorance, because you don't go to a GM state-of-the-art plant if you don't have enough knowledge to work in that production line. And these lazy people, middle class, white American, they just sat down and said, Jesus, I don't have a job anymore. And they had Trump saying, I'm going to get that job for you. Okay, job. Okay, Trump. I sit down in my chair, watch TV, get my glass of beer, and wait for Trump to deliver. And he will never deliver. Because it's not one guy that moves an economy. We are the economy, each one of us in our front job. So the economy is all of us, not one guy. And so this populism, demagoguery is very present in the world. It's what we suffered in Latin America all throughout the 20th century. It's what still we have there in Venezuela, in Cuba, in Bolivia, in Ecuador. So we need bright minds to change those concepts and move into this new world.
Yeah, this is a very clear example how a politician get political support by promising benefit for a large group of people at expense of a larger group of people. To those who who benefit from cutting other people from jobs to have higher salaries, to have jobs inside their closer territory. And this is typical for politics, right? They want to get support from those who benefit from their actions. And in developing countries, it's pretty common, and this is pretty traditional political system, when a politician takes property from less loyal and gives it to more loyal. It cuts markets for less loyal and opens it and monopolize it for more loyal. That's how politics often gather support in developing countries. And this completely destroys property rights. And this destroys free markets, which provide incentives to do great products. Is it true? Does power works this way?
Collective thinking is by far the way to go. Collective thinking is not 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 = 5. So this collective thinking, I want to throw a challenge, and I hope I can describe it very briefly, because it's something we started to do. Mexico is deficient on its production of corn. So we import $40 billion worth of corn from United States. So we need to be self-sufficient because corn is our beautiful, tasteful, energy product to make the tacos, and that's our main food, tortillas and tacos in Mexico. So we need corn for that. And now that we have Trump, the disruptor there, he's saying, I'm gonna build a wall, I'm gonna break down and eliminate US participation of NAFTA, so you better start worrying where are you gonna produce your corn. So now we're moving fast. And the challenge is the following. There's one guy, like Norman Borlaug, that made that green revolution, and he got the Nobel Prize. And he experienced and developed the project in Mexico, in Sonora, Mexico, for wheat. I have the guy now that I'm going to make Nobel Prize by the name of Ernesto, because he knows how to increase the yield on corn per hectare. And he increased it by 30 and 40%. And it's not technology, it's wisdom, which I think is better than technology, to be wise. And you get to be wise when you're 75 years old like me. You get wise. And so if he can increase the yield 30 or 50%, we just have to put together maybe brake chain, maybe technology, software, maybe big data or whatever, because it's millions of small producers that we have to move upwards to get a better yield out of their piece of land. So everything is there. The market, the consumption, the price, the profits, but we just have to control every step of this process. We just have to digitalize and make sure that every single one of those millions of farmers do their part of the work. And this is the challenge that I have thrown to these guys here. We're having a strategic meeting next week in Mexico because that would be a great contribution to Mexico. I mean, it's millions of people that will be leaving poverty and becoming middle classes if we can just increase by 30 or 40% the yield. Now, this guy Ernesto's test market is China. He was there for 10 years, and he got all the awards from Chinese government and local governments, Chinese governments, because of what he did. So I told him, you have to come back to Mexico. I need your brain there. He said, I'm making money in China. What about if I give you tacos, tequila, enchiladas, and you come back home? So now he accepted the challenge. But the challenge to all of us is, how can we use all these new concepts that you have here to mobilize 3.5 million small farmers to move with the same music, to play them the violin, and they move all together ahead. They know the path, they know where they're going, and we control the whole process.
Wow, I'm just feeling son of Mexico somewhere in Cancun or something. Why not we come there with the forum sometime? Huh? What do you think?
Good.
Okay, so let's do maybe 3 questions. Okay, so you're near me, so that's 3 questions. Okay.
Señor Presidente, for those of us who are citizens that live north of the border, and for those of us here who are citizens of the world, I wonder what you think we can do to help accomplish this beautiful dream you just mentioned. You said Mexico and the United States within a generation can have a 1-to-1 ratio economically. This would mean a huge change to the world. And so what part can we take in that beautiful dream?
We are walking through the dream. We're half of the way, as I said. 5-to-1, 1-to-1, one more generation. What we need is to stay on path. We don't need the disruptor. We don't need the wall. We don't need America first and the rest are second. We need sharing, we need compassion, and we need to keep on building, to keep on doing what we know how to do. Imagine if you're a global corporation in America today, that you're GM, and these guys tell you, GM, you better bring back those jobs or else. Or else. He cannot force free markets, free competition, free corporations. He cannot submit them to his will. That's authoritarian. That's not democratic. So what we have to do, according to my point of view, and that's what I'm doing, is resist. Is stand up. And it's not like Ford Motor Company that he told them come back, and they came back. And they closed an investment that they had already started in Mexico, in San Luis Potosí. They canceled the project and came back here. I mean, I cannot see a corporation behaving like that. I mean, a corporation has owners, has stockholders, has stakeholders. It's obliged to their consumers, obliged to their stockholders and stakeholders, not to Trump. Imagine if the world now comes back to a narrow nationalism. Where are the ideas going to be coming from? Where is growth will be coming from? So resist, stand up, and speak the truth. That's what I think is needed. We're on the right path. I mean, United States doesn't need to be great again. It's been great since, and it's great today, and it's a nation leading the world. How could we envision the leading nation of the world enclosing its citizens, its corporations, its academy, its technology in four walls? And they are taking a big risk because you leave an empty space in leadership and somebody else will take it. And China is now very active in Latin America, saying if that guy doesn't like you, here we are. Russia itself is already connecting and finding the opportunities how to move. So resist and stand up.
Mr. President, it's a pleasure to have you here in Asia. Welcome to Asia. I represent a group of Mexicans who live outside. We love Mexico dearly, like you do, and we share your projects. We share your ideas. I've been dedicating 17 years of my life to motivate foreign investors to help us in Mexico. Blockchain can do miracles for one of the most important qualities that it has, which is transparency. We need that in Mexico, more than ever today. My question to you, Mr. President, is how can we, the investors, the motivators, help in this project to make Mexico what we all want?
What you need is to seed the idea, to promote the culture of new thinking in Mexico. And that doesn't take long. I'm trying to convince this guy here, that we make a conference like this in Mexico. I have the place. It's Vicente Fox. We're a convention center with capacity for 18,000 people. And we do great events like CTEC next October. Next May, we're going to have in the World Cannabis Summit, because we like to promote new ideas. I like to endorse with a respectable institution like Centro Fox crazy things like cannabis, like marijuana, because that's the way Mexico is going to get out of the trap where we are. The trap of violence and homicide comes from the huge consumer drug market in the United States. It happens to be that the drug is brought from the south and taken through Mexico to reach that huge 55 billion drug consumer market in the United States. We have to get out of that trap. We have to do it in Mexico. And I think the way to go is legalizing. Is getting out of the prohibitions that don't work. Prohibitions don't work. We must move into regulations. And that's what we did with alcohol. That's what we did with cigarettes. That's what we did with abortion. That's what we did with marriage of the same sex. So governments don't have the right to intervene in our behavior, in our conscience. We were created free, and we must exercise that freedom with responsibility. So I love to have this there in Mexico. And I hope on this corn project that I call yellow revolution as the green revolution of the past, yellow revolution. I think this concept should be part of that. And I did brilliant minds like two great Penn University professors that are here with us somewhere that are going to be on the next panel because they are bright, and we need to integrate academy to oil, to make efficient private sector and public sector, because frequently we're in conflict, we're in shock. So academy comes in and facilitates that to happen.
Thank you. One last question, please. He was first.
So, Mr. President, I'm a citizen of one of the corrupt country in the world. I'm not proud of it, but I want to change. What will be your thought on how to implement blockchain to eradicate the corruption, especially on the agriculture sectors, because we are dependent to so many countries to fulfill our food sustainability? What do you think about it?
Okay, I have to confess, I don't yet understand what blockchain is. I have to learn more and more. So I'm trying to learn here. But technology is a great answer against corruption. Because government services, instead of provided by a bureaucrat that is talking to you here and is extending his hand down here to get the money, so that he changes you on the list, on the waiting list. So machinery, technology, computers, you cannot corrupt them. Unless somebody creates one that is corruptible, but I don't think we need one. We have enough with human beings. So it's a great idea. Those mechanisms will move us out of corruption. And just take a look at the pipelines, the oil pipelines in Mexico. Today, crime is now diversified. And besides moving drugs to the north, now they're milking the pipelines, drilling and drilling and drilling, getting thousands, millions of liters of, or barrels of oil or gasoline. And it's corruption. I mean, with technology, you can find where the leak is, where they are getting the product out. You can easily find out. But corruption is against this problem. So when you visit one of these state-of-the-art automobile manufacturing companies, which, by the way, in our little piece of the world, 10 million people, 4 states, Aguascalientes, Guanajuato, San Luis Potosí, and Querétaro. We have 11 huge state-of-the-art automobile manufacturing plants right there. We have the Nissans, we have the Toyotas, we have the Mercedes-Benz, we have the BMWs, we have the Chrysler, we have the Fords, we have the Volkswagens, we have all of them in this little piece of the world. And when you visit this plant, you see, I don't know if blockchain applies there, but you see the production line is about a mile long. You only see robots there. You see some workers, and you see the start of being born of a car here, and it starts moving at the same speed, same rhythm, and boom, 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 boom. When it finishes there, it's a brand new, beautiful automobile car. And everything moves at the pace of technology, information technologies, machines that move the worker, move the robot, move the engineer, and move all the supply chain to get there right on time. So all of that will certainly get rid of corruption one day.
Wonderful, that's so powerful. Corruption cost is $500 trillion each year because it prevents flow of technology and it destroys incentive structures for 6 to 7 billion of people And the reason why corruption exists is because somebody who is more powerful can take advantage of those who is less powerful. And make it's not clear for those who lose, because corrupted politicians control media and prevent opposition to convey that many people lose from corruption to electorate. So I think that blockchain will solve this problem in many countries. It can replace central banks which print money to their friends. It can help opposition leaders to make elections even if they are not allowed to participate in official elections. And this is the way how they consolidate support. So there will be many powerful groups which prevent each other to take advantage of people. And this will bring equality, rule of law, and free markets, which generate incentives to spend time and life with creating great products rather than trying to steal something from other people or protect yourself from stealing from other people, because rule of law doesn't work. Vicente, thanks a lot for a very great visionary picture. So I believe that there are leaders who can put this vision into products which solve huge problems and make life greater. We don't use great today. Okay. Thanks a lot, Vicente. This is very inspiring.
Gracias. Thank you.